Hey traders, today you're going to learn about a pip. You're going to learn what a pip is and how to actually read the evaluation of a currency pair based on a pip. Also, there's a couple of different ways that a pip is calculated depending on the pair that you're trading. So today I'm going to wipe out any confusion you have about what a pip is on each currency pair, and I'm going to do that right now. So if this is something you're struggling with, make sure to watch this entire video. And before I let the intro and disclaimer roll, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below the video to the right hand side. Click that like button to help with the YouTube algorithm, and follow us on Instagram at The Trading Channel if you're interested in learning more about Forex. I will see you on the other side of the intro and disclaimer to talk about exactly what a pip is. See you in a second. Next up in the all-inclusive beginner Forex trading course is what is a pip. We have to understand what a pip is because a pip is how the Forex market moves. A pip is the smallest amount of movement we can see in a currency pair that actually matters to us whenever we're placing orders. A pip is how we make profit or get stopped out depending on how our trade goes. So it's very important that we understand what this is. Again, a pip is the smallest number that moves in a currency that we care about as traders. There's one number below this called a fractional pip that we're not even going to talk about, other than me saying don't pay attention to it because it does not matter at all to us as traders. So what is a pip? We know that a pip is the smallest number that moves in a currency pair, but how do we identify a pip? Well, look at the euro dollar right now. Right now, you can see that the euro dollar last price is 107.87, 1.0787. So let's write that down. We have the euro dollar at a price of 107.87, 1.0787. And you can see on that currency as well that there is a smaller number as a fifth decimal, a smaller number that's 2 right now in red. That's a fractional pip. We're not going to worry about those at all. What you need to understand is that the way you identify a pip is the fourth place away from the decimal. So the fourth decimal point, meaning if this is the decimal point, we count over 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a pip. And let me clarify that really quickly. Right now, we are talking about a pip on every currency pair except currency pairs that end in JPY. Any currency pair with JPY in it is going to be slightly different than this, and we're going to go over that next. So this is going to be what is a pip, and I'm going to put non-JPY here so that no one's confused. This is a pip on every currency pair except yen pairs, which we're going to discuss what a pip is in a yen pair in just a second. But for every other currency, this is what you're going to use. So this is what is a pip, non-JPY. For every currency pair that doesn't have JPY in it, the fourth decimal place is what is known as 1 pip. So we have the euro dollar at a value of 1.0787. What if the euro dollar goes to 1.0786? How much have we dropped? The euro dollars went down now, but by how much? Well, the math here is pretty easy. If we went from 7 to 6 on our fourth decimal, which is a pip, we dropped by 1 pip. And here's how I want you to look at this. This is the way I looked at it at the beginning, and it really helped me to understand this a little more clearly. Not that it's a super complicated thing. Understanding this, if you watch this video a couple times, will be extremely easy. But the way I look at this is, let's write out our value of the euro dollar and space it out a little bit to give us a little bit of room. And that's what I'm really trying to do here. I want to give myself a little bit of room. So we have 1 decimal 0.787, right? So with this being the case, the way I look at this, if I count my numbers, 1, 2, 3, fourth decimal place is a pip, I like to look at it like this. This is our ones, meaning every time this moves, it's going to be 1. This is our tens. Every time an 8 goes up or down, in this specific case, that's going to be tens. And this is our 100s. That makes it so easy to say, okay, if the euro dollar went from 1.0787, what it's at right now, to 1.0797, how much did we move? Well, let's look down here at our chart where that's the tens. That column is the tens. that decimal point, number 3, is the tens. So therefore, this went down. And actually, in this case, since we went up from 8 to 9, hopefully you caught that before I did, then obviously that means that the euro dollar went up 10 pips because it was in our third decimal point. Now, let's do one more number to make sure you understand this, and we'll go through one more currency pair to really make sure you have a good grasp on this. This is the foundation of any trading career. So let's do 1.0887. Can you tell me at this point how many pips did the euro dollar rise? Well, let's look at our column or graph. We have our ones, the 7, it stayed the same. We have our tens, which was 8, it stayed the same. We have our 100s that was 7 and is now 8. That means that the euro dollar went up not by 10, but by 100 pips. So that's the way you recognize a pip. A pip is the fourth decimal place. It's the smallest amount of currency moves that we care about as traders. Let's do a completely different currency pair that is not a yen pair and go over one more. And again, just like in the last lesson, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions as we go through this. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions as we go through this, and I want you to actually answer those questions on the other end where you're sitting or standing, depending on whether or not you're trying to get exercise in. And now what we're going to do, again, is go over a different currency pair. Let's go over the Aussie New Zealand. Let's just pick a random pair. So AUD, NZD. I do my N's backwards. I'm slightly dyslexic. I literally just drew an N backwards because I cannot ever remember which way they go, and in my head it's always backwards. So we have the Aussie New Zealand, right? The Aussie New Zealand has a current value of 1.0248. 1.0248. Tell me what would be the case, okay? Let's go over a scenario. If the Aussie New Zealand went from 1.0248 to 1.0348. How many pips did this currency pair move? I'll give you a second. Hopefully you were able to say 100 pips. Let's draw out our table one more time to make this very easy. 1.0248. Okay? Here we have our little table that I like to make. At this point, we have our ones, our 1 pip, which is the fourth decimal. Our tens, which is the third decimal. We'll write this out too. 1, 2, 3, 4 decimals. We have our 100s, and the 0 would be the 1000s. You don't really have to know that. That's kind of irrelevant unless we have some kind of super crazy market moves. But in this case of the Aussie New Zealand, from 1.0248 to 1.0348, which currency, stop my phone here. Which one of these numbers changed? It wasn't our ones at all, was it? Our ones was an 8, it's still an 8. It wasn't our tens, it was a 4, it's still a 4. Was it our 100s? It was a 2, it is a 3. So therefore, this market moved 100 pips. Going from 2 to 3 would mean that we moved a total of 100 pips here on the Aussie New Zealand. So in order to be absolutely sure that you understand all this, give yourself a little test. Look at a currency pair and look at all the numbers on that pair's value, and then ask yourself what would change. Write down another random number below or above it, and what would change if price went from where it is now to that number that you wrote down. That's a great exercise to do here in this case. And remember, the way we're looking at this is our pip, our 1 pip, is the fourth decimal place away from the decimal. Okay? So if we have our, just as a final review here on non-yen pairs, if we have the fourth decimal place here, this would be 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 after the decimal. This is 1 pip. This is the tens. This is the 100s. So if we move to 1.0258, then we have moved up 10 pips. That's how you need to be looking at it in terms of what a pip is and how it's valued. Now, we've just talked about every non-yen pair. Any pair that does not have JPY will be calculated like this and will be valuated like this with 4 decimal places. Now, what about yen pairs? Something very slight changes on any pair with a letter JPY attached to it. So let's do an example of that right now. If we look at the value right now of the dollar yen, which is USD JPY. The dollar yen currently has a value of 110.90. With this being the case, and on only pairs with JPY attached to them, we go 2 decimal places instead of 4. What do I mean by that? Let's actually draw the graph right now so that we can make this as easy as possible. We have 110.90. Okay, if we draw our same graph, this is what it looks like now. Now, our 1 pip is the second decimal place. So what do we have to do? We see our decimal right there. We go 1, 2. On the second decimal place is 1 pip. So this is our ones. What does that mean for the 9 in this specific case? That means the 9 is going to be our 10s and the 0 is going to be our 100s. Okay? So with this in place, let's go ahead and ask ourselves a very familiar question for this video, which is, if this market moved from 110.90 to 110.96, how many pips did it go up? If the market moved this amount, how many pips is that this market just rose? Well, if we look at the ones, it goes from 0 to 6. Therefore, this market would have risen or rose, not sure which one to use there, by 6 pips. Let me turn this on silent. Sorry, guys. Okay, so now let's go over a couple of other examples. So instead of us rising by 6 pips, I want you to tell me how much we are rising in this case. Let's go with 112.90. If price of the dollar yen goes from 110.90 to 112.90, then how much has that value risen? How much has the price went up? This, my friends, would be 200 pips, because this column that was 0 is the hundreds column. So this would be a plus 200 on the dollar yen. Now, to make sure that you understand yen pairs as well as you do every other currency pair, I'm going to go over one more yen pair that doesn't have the dollar in it, just a completely different pair, to make sure you're completely comprehending how to read pips. Let's go ahead and do that right now. And again, in this section, I'll be asking a lot of questions, and I want you to try to answer them at home so that you get a better grasp of this before I answer them here, even if you have to pause the video. So let's go. That all rhymed. Wow, that's pretty good. Let's go into another yen pair. Let's try out the pound yen. So GBP, JPY, and the value of this currency pair right now, if I find it on the chart, and I'll show you a screenshot of it somewhere, the value of the pound yen is 130.70. As you'll notice, because this pair has JPY in it, we only move 2 decimals from the decimal, right? So if we have 130.70, then decimal 1 would count as how many pips? This is our tens, remember? And then this, our second decimal, right? This is decimal 2, is going to be 1 pip. So if this market and this are 0 on the 130, our 0 is going to be 100 pips. So if this market goes to 133.70, what do we have? How much of a move did we have in the pound yen? We had a 300 pip move, a plus 300 pip move. If we go from 130.70 to 130.85, how many pips did we move? We moved up 15 pips, because 70 to 85 is 15. If we go to 130.72, how many pips did we move? Up 2 pips. And if we go from 130.70 to 129.70, how much did we go down? 100 pips. We went down 100 pips. So I hope that now you have a really good grasp of what a pip actually means and how to calculate a currency's value against another one. This is a very important foundational step to beginning your foreign currency trading career. So it's definitely necessary to have in the arsenal. And up next, we're going to talk about what is the actual value for each pip, how to calculate order size, and a little bit about leverage. So I hope to see you there in the next video, or I will see you there in the next video, and I'll talk to you then. See you soon.